Hello everyone, I'd just like to continue with where I was with the previous video. So we were just talking about the queen here on g4, and in this position I played the best move according to Stockfish, which is h3. Now we've already sort of mentioned with black that just because a move attacks something doesn't necessarily make it the best move, but in this case I decided that playing the move h3 was actually a good idea for white. For one thing, we want to try and make the queen move away somewhere so that we can move our bishop and perhaps castle, so that I could get our king safe, because the queen is a little bit annoying here. But again, this also takes away the g4 square for the queen, so it's kind of a multi-purpose move here. And again, the computer is recommending the move queen h5, and we see after queen h5 then obviously this bishop now becomes free to move. That is one aspect of the position. I'm not saying that's everything in this position, but that is one thing to note there. But here the computer, which I was played a poor move, the move queen to g6, and I believe now that the queen is lost. It becomes very apparent after the next few moves. But I believe even from this position, I'm pretty sure that the queen is trapped here. I don't think there's any way to defend this. But in any case, I did after a little while find the best move here with knight to e5. It's obviously attacking the queen, and we can see obviously the queen and the bishop here have got these nice diagonals to work with. Particularly this bishop on c1. It's always nice to develop a piece without actually having to move it, where it can kind of do some damage really. Again, this wouldn't be so significant if this queen wasn't here, but because it is, then that's why we can, for example, move our knight more than once. There's a lot of videos saying that why it's important. General principles in chess: you shouldn't move the same piece twice unless you have a good reason. But this is kind of a good example of that, where you can get a very strong initiative with your pieces just because of a targetable piece, a valuable piece. So here, knight takes e4 would be the best move. Because it can technically be taken. Of course, that would hang the queen. But the computer knows that the queen cannot be saved. That's why it's suggesting the move knight to e4. So it's rather a case of suggesting the variation, which is of the best preference for black in this situation. But the engine here played the move queen h5, which it actually seems to be of similar level. And again, because the queen's now left the g-file, this bishop can now move. And again, I found that bishop e2 is a good move here. Developing a piece, we're ready to castle, and the queen's attacked. Now, queen h4 is the top move here. I mentioned in the other video that the other move that I analysed in my head was the move knight to g4, and this perhaps to less experienced players looks a strange move, because it's like, well, can't we just take this? But the issue with this is that and actually from the start of chess, if you look at the rooks are not defended at the start of the game. So obviously in this case this pawn here is pinned, so we can't take this with the pawn because we would be losing our rook with check. That would be very bad. But the idea here for white is to actually play the move g3, and the pawn takes away some critical squares for the queen. Again, it's all and again this knight is still attacked, and this is another concept, is that you don't have to always take a piece immediately. There are other things you can do in some situations like this. And again, here queen takes e5 is actually the best move for black, again for similar reasons it was mentioned before. So yeah, knight to g4 would have been certainly a very reasonable alternative, but yeah, queen g4 is what happened. And here now, the key move after bishop e2 is this move g3. And again, normally you don't want to move pawns on the side where you want to castle, but again, in this situation, the queen is trapped. The best that black can actually do now is to take a pawn and lose the queen. So here, Indian played queen to h6. It's obviously not taking the pawns, so you can see that is the reason why the evaluation increases slightly again in white's favour. So this loses the queen, obviously, eventually. So we get that, and then g takes. And here bishop to h5 is the best idea here, so obviously that attacks the weakened f7 pawn with two pieces. And if knight takes, then the queen can recapture, and obviously that would be a very good situation for white, so this move makes sense. I came up with another idea in this situation, just simply developing my queen to the centre of the board, d3. This is a good move. Obviously I can now castle either way. And yeah, one of the main components that you need to consider with any move is just the tactics in any given position, or does a move lose material, or does anything bad happen with a move? And if the tactics and the strategies go together well, then usually it's a good move. So yeah, so queen to d3, which I think is fine. Crew says it's fine. And now here we got bishop to. The best move. The best move is bishop to g7. The computer developed the knight, and here white can play knight b5, which is a move I looked at. This obviously attacks the c7 pawn. It's worth noting that in this position here, if white plays knight to b5, then notice, because the knight is here, then we've got this move knight to a6, which defends the pawn. And normally you can remove this piece, but the issue is that the line of the bishop here is blocked because of our knight on b5. So for that reason, it's better to wait here after, in this situation, now knight to b5 is stronger, because there's no way really to defend this pawn. But I played an alternative here. I considered the move a3, which I also mentioned in the other video. The idea of this move is to just stop a lot of ideas from black. It's possible that black would have liked to have played a piece, for example a knight or a bishop, to the b4 square. So a3 is kind of an example of a move that just makes it more difficult for black to really do anything. And again, it doesn't really harm white's position. So I actually believe I intended on playing the move a3, but during the analysis I believe I forgot which move I meant to play and played castles instead. Both moves were actually fine, I realised, but I'd mistakenly played a move I didn't intend on, in a sense. So I castled here queenside, which is actually fine. There's nothing wrong with this really at all. Obviously now we've completed as white our development. We've got some nice pieces. We've got a nice piece here on the 5th rank potentially. So everything's really good for white, and obviously we're up a queen, so this is a good situation. So black would like to play a6 here. Again, that prevents this idea we've already looked at with the knight to b5. in this position, we saw the move d5, which is probably not the best idea. This is an example of a move which is not tactically really that unsound, but when your king is in the centre and your opponent's is safer, you see the white king here is safer than the black king, this potentially allows white to open the position. And with that in mind, it's not so surprising that e takes d5 here is actually the best move for white. I came up with a different idea here, in a way a little bit stubbornness perhaps, but queen to f3, I'm attacking the knight on f6. My queen still defends some important pieces for whites, and obviously now my rook is able to watch over my d-pawn still. But yeah, this is also a fine alternative. E takes would have just been perhaps a little bit more precise. And now here bishop to g7, which obviously defends that piece, would have been the right move. The computer here played knight takes e5. And then here, obviously there's two main moves to look at. The first is queen takes f6, which is a good move. After a little while I've realised that it's actually best to take this knight. And the reason why escapes me now. But yeah, although the pieces are the same value, there is, I mean obviously this knight is now attacked. It's always generally good if you have, I mean I said sort of earlier that it isn't always good just to attack a piece, but obviously if you can take a piece and attack something at the same time, then it limits your opponent's options, because they have to find moves which are you know, essentially worth a knight or more. So this is a good situation for white. And it's always difficult actually as well, I think, when you play chess, if you are on the losing side where you have less material, to try and keep playing the best moves, because it's obviously emotionally very difficult to sort of handle a losing situation. So it's a very clinical game. Yeah, so yeah, in this situation it's better just for black to play something like knight d7 simply. So obviously this does allow the queen potentially to penetrate, although the knight does cover the f6 square from the d7, and we can see with this bishop trapped it doesn't really matter that we're placing our knight here. So in this position we saw knight takes, which is an alternative, and here I'm trying to remember which move I looked at here. What did I play here? Bishop h5. Okay, the move actually escapes me. Perhaps it was something like knight b5. I'm not sure. It wasn't a capturing move. I found an alternative idea here, but in the end I realised that just trading knights in this situation is good for white. So trading pieces is something you shouldn't usually just do for no reason. You should do it for, you know, a good reason, and trading knights in this particular situation is really good for white, because this is a good piece here. It's controlling the f6 square, which we would like to put a piece on, like our queen for example, and this pawn would be hanging at the end of the trade, so, and obviously this rook would be open on the d-file. So with all that in mind, that's why it's a good reason to trade pieces here. So we saw d takes. This is actually a big mistake, and actually is another reason, the main reason even, why knight takes is the best move. Because here, the best move is now bishop to g7, and the reason is because if black does take this piece, then this leads to a forced mate after the move Queen f6, which is the move I found. And one of the main reasons, again, as I said earlier, is that the D line is open. So this illustrates that pieces work well when they have a lot of room, it's a lot of scope to work with, which is why black really probably shouldn't have opted for this and have played again knight to d7. That keeps the position closed. So here, that's why trading is good. So white could actually just take this and still be doing fine. But this is where, like in chess, you have to look for the best move, and in this case Queen f6 is the best move because this is leading to a forced mate. So don't be too quick to grab material sometimes. Now bishop to d6, the computer knows that this rook is going to be lost. So bishop d6 is the top move. It sort of shows you how bad black's position is here. Well, this is a forced mate, so actually it's not surprising we see moves like this for black. We saw bishop to e7, so queen takes, so we're going down the optimal route here. Bishop f8 I believe is the only move. And now the best move here is bishop to h5. I think, yeah, with the idea of queen f6 and then queen takes f7 mate. That's the idea there. But I played the move rook to d8 check, and this is a type of move that less experienced players may not find because it just looks like it gives away a piece. But it's important to realise here that this king doesn't really have many squares to go to, and this pawn and this queen are really... The king's in a lot of trouble because of where these pieces are. So this is an example of a move that you should look at. Checks are moves you should look at in these sorts of positions. So king takes d8 is forced, pretty much. That's why, again, it's really good to look at such moves. Any time you have a move where your opponent has limited options, they're worth exploring. And now queen takes f8, check, king d7, and now bishop b5 wins, but I played rook to d1, and we get king to c6, and important move here, queen e8 check. The queen wants to be on this diagonal. It's quite important to realise that, and we can see that with the bishop here, that's where we want our pieces. So we need to visualise where we want our pieces. So again, I'm not just checking here because it's a check. I'm checking here because this is a favourable situation for white. So bishop d7, the best move, and now queen takes. So again, it's all forced. And now whatever black does, it's going to be mate in 1. So in this case, king to c5, and then with queen to b5 mate. So I think I missed one move in the variation, but yeah, definitely for me I'm still quite a new player to chess, but I really just wanted to share that game with you, so that hopefully you can enjoy it, and perhaps as if you're a lower rated player like me, you can use some of these ideas in your own games. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that. See you next time.